Hi everyone, today we're going to talk about IELTS Speaking Part 3 and developing your answers. Now, IELTS Speaking Part 3, it really depends. I think if I had to think of all the students I've had over the years, maybe Part 3 can be the most scary to some students because there's no time to prepare really. Unlike in Part 2, you have a whole 60 seconds to get your ideas ready. In Part 3, you don't have that time to prepare any notes. So it does require you to respond more quickly. But I always recommend the following formats. Give your opinion, give a reason, give an example. If you can do these three things, you're well on your way to making a good impression for IELTS Speaking Part 3. So the opinion you give does not have to be your actual opinion. So it's another good reminder that you are not going to be scored on whether or not the examiner agrees or disagrees with you. You have a lot of flexibility here that you don't have to worry or stress about, oh, should I say this? Should I not say this? How should you answer? You should answer in the way that you can speak the most about. So if there's a topic, maybe you do agree or disagree with it, but if you can say more about one side than the other, even if it's not your true feelings, that's probably the one that's best to go with because you can talk more about it, give some examples. So first, how do we agree? The examiner asks you a question, might say, something like, should students be allowed to use their phones in the classroom? Let's say you are a student and you're like, absolutely, we definitely should be able to. Or yes, I think we should be able to. Or I agree with that. I somewhat agree with that. I tend to agree with that. If you disagree with something, you say, oh, to be honest, I'm not sure about that. Or I don't really agree with that. Actually, I totally disagree with that. Or of course, we have the it depends, right? It will feel like the examiner is asking you to pick a side sometimes, might ask you to agree or disagree. And sometimes it will be easier for you to just say you agree or disagree. But the it depends is fine too, and that is quite common that if the examiner makes a statement or a question, you might say, well, when this happens, I might agree. You give a reason, an example. And then you might say, but I would disagree because of this reason, and give an example. So you can do both if you are comfortable with that. I guess the good news is, though, you don't need to speak as long for each question as you did for Part 2. You're going to get a bunch of different questions in Part 3, not just one. So you're not speaking for the same amount of time that you did in Part 2. All right, now, if you get stuck, there are some more phrases you can use to buy yourself a bit more time, but we don't want to use them every time. Okay, so you could say things like, that's tricky, or let me think about that for a moment. I'm not really sure, but if I had to guess, and then you continue like that. So you can use that from time to time. Please don't use that for every answer. And you can answer these a bit slowly. You don't have to rush in. Give yourself time to think. The examiner will be well aware that these are probably not questions you think about every day. So take your time. You don't need to rush into it. If you answer too quickly, it might make you even more nervous. So just, reply at a regular speed. And my best advice as well, which comes to all parts of the IELTS speaking test, is practice. I give my students a bunch of realistic IELTS Part 3 questions, and I give them some crazy ones too, because the purpose is really just for students to get in the habit of coming up with an opinion, any opinion, quickly, coming up with a quick reason and a quick example. All right, so I will throw so many different topics at them so that over time, they just get into the habit of coming up with a response quickly. All right, so remember, the best advice I have is practice. Practice answering lots of questions on the spot, having your opinion, giving it quickly and confidently, And the examiner, again, is not going to score you on your ideas. So it doesn't matter if the examiner agrees or disagrees with you. All they're listening for is your fluency, your vocabulary, your grammar, and your pronunciation. And also, the examiner is not going to look up your answers later to check on something. IELTS Speaking Part 3 is very different from, say, IELTS Writing Test Part 1, where you have to talk about a chart or a graph or something that you can't just make things up. But in IELTS Speaking Part 3, you can actually just come up with any answer. And as long as you can explain why and give an example, it's going to be okay. You don't need to stress about what your opinion is, just as long as you can express it. So answer in the way that is going to be easiest for you, whatever that might be. All right, so we'll go back to that example. Should students be allowed to use their phones in class? Maybe you are a student and you want the phones to be allowed and you have a lot of good examples for that, go for it. But if you're actually able to think of more reasons why phones should not be allowed, go for that, right? Do what is easiest for you to answer. It doesn't have to actually be your true opinion. All right, now one that I use all the time, and it really stumps my students, is at what age should men and women retire? Okay, this is maybe an odd one because it's not something that most of my students would ever think about. Many of my students are on the younger side. Some have not even started working yet. So it might feel like a strange question to ask people who may not even started a job yet. But again, you don't have to be an expert on this. You don't have to have thought about this before. You're basically going to give any opinion. You could say, I think men should retire at age 50 and women should retire at 60, right? And you're going to have to give an explanation why. I've had some students say, it's because women tend to live longer than men. Okay, that's fine. It doesn't matter if it's true for you. It's giving an example, an explanation of why. You could say, oh, I think everyone should retire at 45 because they're still young enough to go travel the world and, have fun and explore while they're still healthy and young. You could say that, okay? The examiner is not going to score you on practicality, anything like that. It's your ability to give an opinion, explain why, and give some examples. A fun one I like to practice with my students is a question like, should robots and computers replace teachers, right? And I remind them, I said, don't worry, I can't give you a bad score if you say, oh yes, get rid of all the teachers. We want only robots and computers to replace it. It's okay. Whichever way you have more things to say about, you can go for it. So you could say, yes, I absolutely agree that robots and computers should replace teachers. It might be more convenient. I can study in my own time, in my pajamas, whenever I want, and not have the pressure of inconvenience of traveling to and from class. That is just as valid as someone who might say, oh, no way, robots and computers shouldn't replace teachers because I prefer to be able to ask questions, have that emotion, that human interaction. You can do whatever you like. Okay. Things like, should students be required to learn how to cook in school? Same thing. We're not expecting that this is something that you think a lot about. You can agree or disagree as long as you're able to give some examples of why you would say that. All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning into our video today. Again, I know I sound like a broken record, but practice, practice, practice is the best thing you can do. Get together with some friends. Why not come up with some challenging questions and see if you can get each other to answer on the spot. If you get stuck on a question, share it with friends, brainstorm together. Think of how could you answer that, giving an opinion, a reason, an example. All right, everyone, keep practicing and we'll see you next time.